Fantasy drafts coming fast and furious now as we've wrapped up the preseason. Patrick Mahomes, he's your top quarterback. You got Christian McCaffrey, the top running back. Devontae Adams, top wide receiver. Our experts, our three-headed monster, Dave, Heath, Jamie, they put all their rankings together, and they've formed, as they do each and every year, a consensus. And they go all the way to 200. We'll just show you the top guys right now, top 25 or so. McCaffrey, Cook, Kamara, that's exactly, they went 1, 2, 3 in that order in the one mock, or the one actual draft I've done so far. And then getting into the second and third rounds here, you've got guys like Calvin Ridley at number 16, A.J. Brown, expected to have another great season at 19. Najee Harris, the rookie running back for the Steelers, going to be a very vital piece of that offense. And then a couple of tight ends as well, and Darren Waller and George Kittle after Travis Kelce we saw earlier on in this list. So those are the guys at the top. Those are the guys that we're going to be targeting in rounds 1 and 2 and 3. Dave Richard is here now to give us his all-sleeper team. Before we jump in, how do you define a sleeper?
I'm looking at a great value late in draft, somebody that isn't necessarily someone that you want to start week 1 in your fantasy lineup, but you're happy to have on your bench, and then they become somebody that you're comfortable starting as the year goes on. It's just like buying a stock. Someone will tell you, hey, buy a stock in XYZ. Well, what's XYZ? Well, it doesn't really matter. It's 30 cents a share. And then you buy it, and it becomes $200 a share. That's a sleeper. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get people to buy some XYZ.
And these are guys that even if you've already had your draft, they might be available on waivers right away.
Definitely.
They might be available as a free agent.
All of the players that we're going to talk about have an ADP of after round 10 on CBS and CBS competing sites like ESPN and Yahoo, average draft position. So they're going to be everywhere.
Okay, well, let's start at the quarterback position, and you actually like Big Ben as a sleeper this season. A lot of people counting him out.
Well, they're counting him out because they saw what happened last year where he wasn't a very efficient quarterback. He played behind a bad offensive line, and he threw a ton. He really compiled his numbers. He didn't necessarily make a ton of great throws. But I'll tell you what, I am encouraged by what I've seen from the Steelers' offensive line this preseason. In 2 games, they've done a really nice job in pass protection. And they're changing their offense up this year, Chris. They've changed offensive coordinators. They're going with Matt Canada. He uses a lot of pre-snap motion and play action that keeps defenses guessing. That's something the Steelers didn't do a lot of last year. And Roethlisberger did manage to finish as a top 14 fantasy quarterback in points per game. I think he's got a chance to be right back there. No one's really drafting him. Everybody's kind of veering toward Matthew Stafford with a later pick, Joe Burrow with a later pick. They might invest in one of those rookie quarterbacks, speaking about sleepers, Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields or Trey Lance. I think Roethlisberger follows right behind those guys. He's worth a late pick if you're not completely sold on the quarterback that you get to start your team. If you've got Jalen Hurts as your number 1 quarterback, that's fine to begin the year. But if he stinks, you'd like to have a number 2 behind him. Roethlisberger is one of the safest ones you can find.
As we move to running backs, this is Dave Richard put together an all-sleeper team for us. This is for PPR leagues, correct?
Sure.
Okay, let's go to the running backs now. And you've got a couple of them. One for the Bucs, who we know, Gio Bernard, and another that we're not that familiar with, and that's Saints running back Tony Jones.
So Giovanni Bernard is in that passing downs role for Tampa Bay, and when we've seen running backs in that passing down role with Tom Brady in the past, it's usually meant a top 24 finish at the position in PPR points per game, anywhere from 11 to 15 PPR points per game, and that's the role Giovanni Bernard has right now. If Ronald Jones screws up, or if Leonard Fournette gets hurt, or whatever happens with those 2 running backs, Bruce Arians has another guy he can turn to for rushing downs, and it's Giovanni Bernard. So I love the idea of getting him round 11 plus in PPR leagues. Absolute great running back to have on your bench just for depth. He might end up being a starter by week 7 for your team. Might be sooner than that if those other running backs mess up. And Tony Jones really caught my eye this preseason. He's got good speed, good burst, good change of direction. He's a better running back right now than Latavius Murray is. That's my opinion. And I think the Saints might see it the same way. You heard on a broadcast during the preseason that he was their number 2 running back to begin the year. And the problem is that the number 1 running back in New Orleans is a pretty good running back named Alvin Kamara. So how much work could there really be for Tony Jones? Maybe in the neighborhood of 10 carries per game. But if he ends up being the thunder to Alvin Kamara's lightning, maybe he steals a couple of touchdowns along the way. Another running back that's worth that round 10 plus pick.
The projections there, you see Bernard as a top 45 PPR running back, and Jones with potential, but graded out right now at number 57 overall. Moving to the wide receiver position, you put this list together before the news broke this morning that Cam Newton was being released by the New England Patriots, but you do have a Patriots wide receiver here, Jacoby Myers, and I know that the Newton release didn't change anything because you just assumed it was going to be Mac Jones.
I knew that Mac Jones was going to play more this season than Cam Newton. I didn't think it would be the entire season, but that's what's happened, and it's great news for Jacoby Myers, who already earned a 20% target share last year from Cam Newton. He's going to get it from Mac Jones as well. Jones this preseason has looked outstanding, anything but a rookie. And Myers caught my eye when he was playing in college at South Carolina. I think he's going to end up being a very good fantasy wide receiver as a slot guy who's going to just get open. He's got a half yard of separation every single time he runs a route this preseason, and Mac Jones' accuracy should get him open. I like Jacoby Myers a lot. His ADP, again, it's crazy. It's after round 10. I'd be happy to take him in round 8 in a PPR league, late round 9 in a non-PPR.
Another sleeper for you is a guy who wouldn't have been a sleeper probably a year ago, Hollywood Brown. We've been expecting so much from him.
Yeah.
This season, you think that when we're counting him out, he might come to play?
That's what's happening because his ADP is just completely bottomed out. Now here's another wide receiver whose ADP is after round 10. And if you go back and look at last year, his final 8 games, including the 2 playoff games, he had 6 touchdowns, almost 600 yards, 37 catches, a 65% catch rate. They changed the way they used him in that Baltimore offense, where he was running routes closer to the line of scrimmage. He was a red zone weapon. Absolutely nobody in the National Football League could keep up with him inside the 20-yard line when he ran those crosser routes. And it looks like he's getting back into practice for Baltimore. So this is more about just don't forget about Marquise Brown. We know that Rashad Bateman won't be ready to start the year. Sammy Watkins is always beat up. The Ravens need to incorporate more passing in their offense. J.K. Dobbins is now on the shelf. The running backs that they have currently can't catch the football. There will be opportunities for Marquise Brown, one of my favorite guys to take late in drafts.
Okay, so Brown along with Patriots wide receiver Jacoby Myers. I mentioned we were going to have a couple Patriots here. You also have one of those tight ends, Jonnu Smith. We're trying to make sense of the wide receiver room because they went out and they signed basically every tight end out there. So how do you separate those tight ends?
Look at Jonnu Smith as more of a wide receiver than a tight end. Hunter Henry is a great tight end, but that means that he does a lot of blocking, and I just don't see Jonnu Smith doing a lot of that. He was already an excellent red zone weapon for the Tennessee Titans last year. He's going to be that for New England this year, but I think he can do a lot more. And you just look at his size, his speed. He's going to be tough for defenses to match up with. And then you throw on Mac Jones film and you realize how accurate he is. And he had a lot of connections with Devin Asiasi in the preseason. That's a move tight end. So this is something that's going to be incorporated in the Patriots offense. And fantasy managers are always on the hunt for big-time tight ends late on draft day. I had my money on Jonnu Smith last year. He worked out in the first half of the season. My money is on him again. If I can't get one of my first 7 tight ends on draft day, I'm going after Jonnu Smith, round 10, round 11, round 12.
And quickly, Dave, just to recap, because it's the story of the day, where are you ranking Mac Jones right now?
He's not going to be ranked in my top 24 quarterbacks in 1 quarterback leagues. He might make it into the bottom of that in 2 QB leagues because you know he's got the whole season in front of him. He only threw 1 touchdown in the preseason. He played a lot, threw over 50 passes, so I'm a little discouraged by that. But I do think he'll be good enough to help those other receivers and tight ends, especially in PPR leagues.
Patriots releasing Cam Newton. They are rolling with Mac Jones as the starting quarterback. That's Dave Richard. You Ask FFT, that's your Twitter handle, right? Tweet your fantasy questions. Hashtag AskFFT. Our experts like Dave Richard will answer them on the air. Fantasy Football Today, weekdays here at noon Eastern Time.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.